You're listening to Trainual's SMB Consulting Show with Bradford Jones.
Hey everyone, welcome back to our content series here where we're talking to our Trainual certified consultants. We're so happy to have Josh Fonger, owner of Work the System. This is one of our Arizona-based consultants. So Josh, we are out of the office. We're remote right now. So I know everything's changing right now, but hi to you there in Arizona.
Yeah, glad to be here, Bradford.
Thanks for joining us today. Today's March 31st, and so we give the day. A lot of times we don't date videos such as this, but the day matters right now, of course, just because everything in the world is changing day by day. But as we sit here March 31st, everything's kind of changing quickly, of course, and here in Tennessee, where I'm based, we have a stay-at-home order, and most of our non-essential businesses are closed. And I know it's kind of the same there in Arizona, evolving. And so, Josh, one of the things we're talking to our consultants right now is just like, what are you seeing and hearing from your clients and your network during this time about how business is operating and just what is going on in your network?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I have a number of clients right now, and it's varied, right? So my dental client in California, they're not open, right? They can't see any clients. That's a big, and my chiropractor in Kentucky, they're not seeing patients, but the online companies, I've got some SaaS companies and some companies that have blog writers and podcasters, and they have just as much work as ever. Or at least they can be working, right? So they're busy, maybe not doing as many sales right now, but the work's still flowing. So definitely there's a big shift between traditional business owners that are physical versus online and how they're reacting to the current news.
Yeah, it's been amazing to see the businesses that have had to alter their service offerings. So have you seen any of that or any impressions on service changes or service changes during this time?
A little bit, yeah. I'm not a huge believer in totally changing your business model because of a pandemic that might last, let's say 3 months or so. Who knows? We'll find out later on how long this really lasts. But your core business, like if you are a dentist or a chiropractor, is going to be the same, right? And there are plenty of things you could be doing during a few month hiatus to be really efficient, really effective, really take your business to the next level. But if your company should make a pivot or can make a pivot, like we're making a pivot in our business right now, I think is an amazing time because everything is in this kind of stasis where people aren't sure what's going to happen next. It's a great time to reevaluate all your service offerings, all the things that you do, and maybe remove a few of them that aren't as productive, take on a few more ones that are productive, like companies I work with that are involved in events. They're doing more online events. They're packaging up more of the material as digital products. So they are making a few shifts to mitigate the current problem. But I'm not a huge believer in totally shifting your business model because of something that is a one-time event or an event that's not going to be happening every week. I'm a bigger believer in building the systems that are going to take your company 5-10x farther and focus on those. And sometimes you're going to be selling more, and sometimes you're going to be like right now. A lot of my clients are just, hey, let's double down on building our infrastructure, our recruiting, our hiring, our training, how we handle billing and accounts receivable. Let's focus on those systems and get those really, really tight so that when things start to get back together, we're more efficient, we can scale farther instead of just worrying, stressing, and trying to break our business model for something different when this is just a very unique time. And I think that, people will go back and buy ice cream cones. People will be going to the theater. People will be going to restaurants. So if you're a restaurant, don't try to say, well, now we're going to be just a takeout restaurant forever. No, you're going to be a takeout restaurant for maybe 3 months, but actually, no, your core business is still going to be bringing, creating that atmosphere, creating that experience. It's a great time. Actually, a couple of my clients are doing this, is to clean house and to clean out their office, to make it, to improve the environment of it, because no one's there right now. And this is a great time to make those kind of investments.
Yeah. Wow. It's a really interesting, thought-provoking idea that, you do need to focus on the day-to-day and make sure, the bills are paid for payroll processes on Friday and all that stuff. But it's a really awesome concept that you're talking about of like the people who, when it goes back to the regular, business structure that you have, you don't want to have to redo it again on the scale. And so that's one thing we've been talking about internally at Trainual is how can we help our customers when they're going to have to ramp back up, or maybe, things get back to normal. And so we're trying to figure that out internally, because number one, as of March 31st, we don't have a due date. We don't know when this is going to end, unfortunately. But yeah, it's really insightful, because you don't want to ruin what's worked for you for a long time. And I think to companies who have been around for 20, 30 years, you don't want to, tear it all down and not be able to go back to where you were once the buying habits and decisions are made again. Yeah, it's a really interesting concept. I like that idea. For you, you've talked about some of the opportunities that you can see here, but you've talked about some of the things you can do internally. But is this an opportunity for some SMBs and other companies to really make this an opportunity and come out on the other side in a better place? Do you see it that way?
Definitely. Yeah. 100%. Because owners they're always thinking about, the next big sale, the next big innovation. And this gives them a chance to sit and settle and look internally, like maybe you should evaluate your team person by person, do those performance based pay plan updates. Maybe you want to review the job descriptions. Maybe you want to actually do some training with your team, use Trainual, right? If you want to do some accountability, those are all things that they usually get missed in the hustle of business, and you can finally actually focus on them. Give them a performance review, right? Build out your orientation, build out all the things that you should have been doing. How about you go through your financials? Maybe you start to sharpen the pencil and see where you can make cuts, where you can make investments. A lot of people I know are going to be getting some loans right now, getting some investments. You might be having an infusion of cash of $10, $20, $50, $100,000, $200,000. You get that infusion of cash. Well, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to invest it? How are you going to go to the next level? So I think it's an amazing time, and to be forced to rest, right? As a business, right? And some of my clients, I'm saying, hey, take a vacation. This is your chance to take a vacation. Free your mind from being go, and look at the non-urgent but important things that you've been putting off for so long. And this is really the infrastructure that's going to allow you to scale. So for those who don't have immediate cash flow issues, that's what we're doing. We're saying, hey, you know what? This is being forced on us. We weren't planning to do this right now, but don't waste this time, because once you get back into the selling mode, you're going to be working 10-hour days trying to make up these sales. And so just be ready for that. But in the meantime, build an infrastructure, invest in your team, invest in your, the systems of your business, do that strategic planning, but don't do the planning as if it's wartime planning for the next 30 days. Do the planning as if we're out of this, because it will be, and plan for the future. And maybe that does mean you need to, have a few different offerings that do work digitally or remotely. Maybe you are going to diversify your product stream a little bit because of the situation. But for the most part, I'm not big into that. Now, on the flip side, if you need some cash right now, then maybe you should be selling off some of your inventory. Maybe you should be laying off some people. Maybe you should be, cutting where you can, and or selling things in advance. So some of my clients are saying, hey, you know what? You usually come here and buy from us. Can you buy a year in advance? Can you buy 6 months in advance? Can you buy, some kind of way to incentivize buying now, even though they're going to use the product in 6 months or later, right? And so they're really aggressively going out there. And if you need the cash, then you have to do what you have to do to make that happen. And so some of my more traditional businesses are going that route, which is fine. But I will say that the cash is there if you, due to this, at least in America, for those watching this, to get some loans that can tide you over for a few months, and use that time to invest in your business. That'd be my recommendation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, it's changing by the day, of course, but like there's plans where those are going to be forgivable at the end of the year in some instances. And that's a gamble, of course. I'm not a financial advisor or a CPA, so don't take my advice there. But there are some options where if you can really dig into and trust your, legal and financial advisors, that if you could find a forgivable loan at the end of the year, that's a time to stay sharp. Chris just said in one of our team meetings the other day, he's like, when I ride, bikes and all that other stuff, he's like, they say pedal the downhill. And he's like, that's not the time to take the break. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. And to your point, if you can find people who can buy your, services or your products in bulk, that's great. But can you also go to your vendors and find some good deals during this time who may need the cash as well. I think that's we haven't discussed that much during this video series we've been doing right now. So that's really interesting perspective.
Yeah, if you have the cash, I mean, you could go to your people and you could buy discounted things in advance for a lot of the services that you know that you need. They might be offering it at 10, 20, 30% off. So this is a great time for you to do that buying. And as bantering with you right now, the other thing that I'm doing with clients is most people have huge databases, and I know you guys aren't a CRM company, but they have huge databases of people that they've never actually figured out their different customer types, what their different customer personas actually want, and how to really manage their database. And this is a great time to reach out to people that you work with and build rapport, build relationships, build partnerships. You're not selling right now, but you are building all of the bridges that you're going to need so that when you do start to sell again, of course, this depends on industry, and you can do it in a much better way. So this is a great time for non-selling, like pre-awareness or awareness or engagement phases of the selling cycle that you can really maximize right now by getting involved with people who are in your community, right? To build those connections now so that selling happens much easier later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you and I, I know you and I have connected a few times, and that your backdrop there, and I'm pretty sure you work from home sometimes, and you do things like that. So you and I have been remote for a good portion of our working experience. But for people who are shifting into that work remote, both for primarily on the manager perspective, or maybe it's a small business who's an owner who's shifting remotely, what would you say are some good ways that they can engage the remote workforce and really make sure that they're making that an effective means for their workforce right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, just like you, I work from home. I've been working from home for over 10 years, right? So I've had it kind of dialed in, but let's see. So tactics for a new person. One would be, set a schedule. Don't just think, well, I'll work whenever I feel like working. No, except, this is when I work. This is when I don't work. This is when I work. And be really clear, because people all around you are going to see you there, and they're going to think you're, the parent at home, not the parent at work. So you have to be really clear about those boundaries. I think boundaries are massive in terms of efficiency. And if you're the owner or the manager and you get this insight and you get this, it doesn't mean your team will, right, at all. So if you wanted them to be effective, you're going to have to train and teach them and lead them to be effective at home, because they might not get that same efficiencies. And this is always the case. Is I'll survey owners versus employees, and owners are way more efficient, way more effective, but they never take the time to impart that wisdom and teaching and training to their teams. And you really need to do that if you want to be an effective manager right now. Then, of course, technology is pretty easy, whether it's Zoom or GoToMeeting or using Slack or whatever software you want to use. There's plenty of them to go digital where maybe it used to be physical. The other thing is meeting times. So in a physical office, you're going to have the banter that happens in the water cooler, lunchroom, in the office, in the hallways. That is critical to the innovation, the relationship, the trust, the success of traditional companies. But online companies know that to make that happen, you actually have to create those spaces. And everybody hates meetings, but you as the leader have to force those water cooler sessions, those sessions to actually happen. And so I think it's really important, if you're going to be doing this for a while, is to have that rhythm. So, hey, we have these huddles daily, and not every company should do daily huddles, but a lot of companies should. And so daily huddle, maybe for 5-10 minutes. And we have our weekly meeting, and here's the things we're going to do in the weekly meeting. Maybe a weekly meeting that's more for sales, a weekly meeting that's more for HR, and those tactical ones. And then this continues on for a while. You're going to have monthly meetings. The monthly meetings might be more strategic or departmental, and the quarterly meetings. And so just do the same kind of meeting rhythm that you would do in a physical location matters even more when you're virtual. And I think people forget that, and they get sidetracked, and they get isolated, and they get distracted. I mean, those people like you and me we're used to the 1,000 distractions that come from working from home. But I would say, if you're a manager and this is new, you're going to have to work doubly or triply as hard on your team to prevent them from getting sidetracked, distracted, and really being inefficient during this time. So set big goals.
Yeah. Yeah. We use Slack internally here. And I was thinking through what it would be like to not have a tool like that, to where if you were pinging back and forth like emails that required, a greeting and a signature and, things. And we use Asana and some different tools like that. But it's like, and one thing I heard from somebody earlier in this series was, they said they heard somebody take a bunch of, like, they just added like 10 tools at the same time and said, we're going to make these all work together. And I was like, man, if my boss had just pushed like 10 tools to me, like immediately, and I was like, hey, now we were using email. Now we're going to use this communication tool, and we were using paper binders, and now we're going to use this online project management tool. Like, that would be overwhelming. You'd spend most of your day just trying to manage those tools. And so I think keeping it simple, there's something to keeping it simple. But also, like you said, I think really being intentional with those things would go a long way from a management perspective, somebody managing a small or medium team.
Yeah. And just to riff on that, keeping it simple idea, I think for online companies, they can do everything because they always have online. But for traditional, you should meet with each person on your team, and you should look at their entire list of things that they do. And you should say, hey, these things you do in the office, hey, they don't exist anymore. So let's just not worry about those. And these things, you really need the office environment to make them happen. And to figure out how to make that happen remotely, it's just not worth the effort. We're going to be back to normal in a few months. So let's just leave these things on the side, or do what it takes to get over it. But these things right here, these things you can triple down on right now. Like, you could really, whether it's our database cleanup, or clearing up our accounts receivable, whatever it is, we got a whole list of things right here that we could triple down on, and we could get 3 or 4 months ahead on these things. Let's just do these things for a while, and then when you get back to the office, you won't do those things as much, and then we'll do this other work that you've been kind of letting slide for a while. And I think it's really important that you help each person in your team understand that the way they use their time now that they're home is not going to be at the same ratio as when they were at the office. And you're going to have to direct them and lead them in that. Otherwise, they won't know. They're going to be stressed out. People get stressed out with change. I mean, entrepreneurs, they like change. They like different things. They like challenges. Most people are not like that. So actually, they do want some structure. They do want some boundaries. They do want some rules. And if you don't afford them that, they're going to be really struggling during this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's phenomenal insight as well, because I think there's a shift there. If you've been out on your own taking risks and doing entrepreneurial things for 10 or 20 years, and you haven't sat in the seat of somebody who doesn't get to make those decisions, they only make their decisions within their role. It's easy just to lose sight of the needs that some people have in that capacity, around the structure. And I think, in my former SMB hat, it was like I've always had somebody I can lean on to keep the structure around it, right? Whether it's administrative tasks or operational tasks or things like that. And so it's, we forget that those people are wired differently than us, for sure. So, yeah. To kind of one of our final questions here, like, what's been a shift you've seen or heard from your clients, like in the workforce or just the market, or just anything that's either been surprising or positively surprising, negatively surprising, anything along those lines?
Well, this one is not necessarily geared towards this particular moment in time, but it's just geared towards what I've seen over the last 10 years and I'm continuing to see, is that online entrepreneurs who used to be more about lifestyle, used to be more about shooting from the hip and making big money based on the opportunities and the shiny objects that kind of reveal themselves, they are increasingly becoming really serious business owners. Like they have their systems dialed in, they have their team trained, they're following the protocol, they're acting like traditional business owners. Yeah, like the way traditional companies have been acting for the last thousands of years. And the traditional ones are starting to loosen up a little bit and realizing, hey, there's this whole online world that I've been missing out on, and I need to continue to, use social media, to use video, to use these things that they used to be afraid of for so long, and now they realize and there's so much opportunity that they're missing out on, that they're really strengthening their businesses and expanding their businesses and expanding their horizons. The possibility of taking their unique product service offering and packaging it and distributing it in this whole new way. And so that the merge of the two I think has been really fascinating for me to see on the outside, because I've been doing this for over 10 years, and realizing that they both have a lot to learn together. And so I guess that would be the one shift that I would say is really interesting from my perspective, maybe not to anyone else, but I think that there's a lot that traditional companies should be trying to learn from online and vice versa. And it doesn't mean that they have to learn it and do it. They need to learn it and then bring in people who can do those things. I think that would be the other big shift, is that there's now too many things to learn. Due to the internet, you can't learn it all. You should be aware of a lot, but you really need to bring in specialists, right? You really need to bring in specialists for the different areas of your business. If you have any chance of competing in this global world, in this fast-moving world, in this competitive world, is that as the knowledge increases and as the potential increases, the need to bring on good people in each of these areas is essential, because you are never, ever going to be able to learn it and do all this. And so if you're an overwhelmed entrepreneur watching this and you think, oh, maybe I should learn this new thing, maybe you should be aware of this new thing, but you should not do it. Likely. Mm-hmm. The company still needs a leader, and that's your job. But as you identify all these great things you could be doing, make sure that you bring on people, use a software like Trainio, bring in people, give them into a nice structure to accelerate what they do into your team. And I guess that's a long answer to your short question, but that's really been what I've seen, is the rise of the leader entrepreneur instead of the doer entrepreneur, because that's no longer feasible anymore. Yeah,
I love that insight, because it's the old, whatever the saying is, it's like, it's not about knowing it right now, it's knowing where to find it and how to find it, efficiently. And that's what, we use Trainual internally. We use our Trainual internally just to be able to reference it. And when I was doing my onboarding with Trainual, I was going through some things that I didn't know, like I hadn't been exposed to yet. And I went through and learned it as much as I could. But what I knew is it would be there through a search when I needed it, when I went to use that tool more in depth. And so I learned the basics, but then I could also get to the deeper part of it. And I think, to your point there, it's like, you're right. Nobody needs to adopt one way or the other completely, but it's like having the knowledge, the base knowledge of it, and then being able to go to it as a resource when you need it is a phenomenal illustration of that. Yeah, that's really insightful. Well, hey, I know people can find you through Trainual.com certified consultants page and all that other stuff, but could you just tell us, about Work the System and what you guys have going on, and maybe how to contact you there as well?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So we're a training, consulting, coaching, certifying company, and it's all based on that book. If you're watching the video right behind me, called Work the System. So I didn't write that, but my business partner did, Sam Carpenter, and that's all about how to move from being self-employed, doing the work yourself, to being a true business owner, where you have the systems helping you scale. And so that book is for free at workthesystem.com. You can download it. There, we're also certifying consultants in the method, creating business systems managers around the world. And so that's what we're doing. We're certifying, and then we're coaching or training people to fix businesses.
Yeah, well, we appreciate your partnership at Trainual. I know it goes back a good ways, and back into my Trainual certified consultant days, by back in the day when you and I first got connected in 2018. And so, we really appreciate all that you bring to the Trainual family. We're thankful to have consultants like you that we can lean on during these times. And it's been a really, really in-depth, great conversation that I've enjoyed today.
Thanks, Bradford. It's been fun for me too.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to Trainual's SMB Consulting Show with Bradford Jones. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you'd like to learn more about Trainual and our certified consultants, head over to Trainual.com.